And joining us here today for our webinar here today. My name is Jordan.
I'm Chelsea.
And obviously we're both staff members here at IVHQ, and we're here today to host this webinar, which is obviously everything you want to know about volunteering abroad in 2016. Really, it's designed for those of you who are thinking about volunteering abroad in the future. Maybe you're looking for a bit more info on IVHQ in general. And all the questions that we're going to be answering in today's session are built on questions that have been submitted via social media, and also the most frequently asked questions that we as a team get on a daily basis as well. Now, if you're watching us live, thank you so much for joining us. Just below, you're going to find that there is a chat window just below where the video is playing. We're going to have members of the team answering questions throughout the presentation, so make sure you keep asking questions throughout today's presentation, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. We'll also have a bit of a Q&A session at the end of the webinar as well. So just add your name, it's nice and simple, and chat away. So let's get into it. Firstly, obviously with volunteering abroad, it's a big step. There's a lot to think about when you're planning your first trip. So one of the questions we get a lot on social media especially is the decision about where you should actually volunteer and what destinations. Okay, can we hear us now? I understand we're cutting out slightly. So we might just not have the slides because I understand that you can't hear when the slides are on. So like I say, with the actual projects itself, it can be quite tricky to actually decide what project you'd like to do. So I will send out a link now in that chat box below, or if you're watching this on YouTube after the live event, I'll add it to the description of where you can actually volunteer and the different projects that we have on offer. Next up though, who can actually volunteer and what are the requirements?
Well, for the most part, we have some general requirements for all of our programs. So something like that would be like the age requirement, which means that you have to be at least 18 years old to volunteer on your own on the program. For the most part, though, the majority of our programs are available for volunteers under 18 if they go with a friend or a family member who is at least 18 and willing to serve as their guardian. In that case, though, they have to be on the same project and in the same accommodation. Other than that, the only main requirement we have is that they speak English, at least to a fluent level or a reasonable enough conversational level to be able to communicate with the local staff and the other volunteers. Now, there are also some other requirements for some of our other projects that will be around qualifications. So that might be educational training or experience. It may even be language requirements, just due to the communicative nature of some of the projects that we run.
And age limits as well. What happens if there are volunteers under the age of 18?
Like I said, they can volunteer with a friend or family member if they're under 18 in most cases. We also don't have an age limit. So we've had a volunteer, I believe, as old as 92 on the program. So we're definitely open to volunteers of all ages.
And also, if you are under the age of 18, you can also, as Chelsea mentioned, volunteer as part of a group. We've actually got a dedicated groups manager here at IVHQ. Now, she will work with families, different corporate groups, universities, both faculty-led and student-led groups as well. So, again, what I'll do is I'll message up her details just in the chat window below and in the description if you're not watching this live. And you can get in contact with her. She's the groups manager and her name's Kirsty, and she'll be more than happy to help you out there as well. Now, when you're thinking about where you'd like to volunteer, you also need to ensure that you can fit some various requirements that we have as well.
Yep. Some of our programs will require a visa. There are other programs that don't. So it depends on your nationality as well as your travel plans. So we're happy to help you with basic questions on that, but it's also a good idea to check with the embassies of the countries that you're interested in. It does vary by nationality, so that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Good news is for a lot of the programs we offer, it doesn't actually require a prearranged visa, so you can essentially arrive in country and then have a stamp put in your passport on arrival. The next one is the language requirements, and as I kind of mentioned before, some of our programs do have language requirements, and that may be the ability to speak Spanish or in some cases French or Arabic, but for the most part we don't have any second language requirements to participate on the program. Now that being said, obviously having some sort of skill in the local language is helpful, and in a lot of the locations we offer there's actually language lessons available that can help you communicate not only in your placement but also just in your daily life, getting around, and even probably help you with the tourism side of thing in your free time as well. Now in terms of project requirements, I kind of touched on that too. So the main one where that is an issue is our medical projects. Now obviously just due to the nature of work, we want some experienced or informed volunteers working in that type of field. The medical projects do vary in terms of the qualification level that we accept. So we do have a lot of programs that are open to pre-med students all the way up to fully qualified practicing healthcare professionals. So just get in touch with us about any programs you're interested in or perhaps your current level of qualification if that's you, and we'll be happy to help you with that.
The other questions we get a lot is, do IVHQ volunteers require travel insurance? And in short, yes, you do. All volunteers do need travel insurance. And again, get in touch with us. Your IVHQ program manager is going to ask for these details and they'll assist you in obviously getting this insurance as well. There are plenty of options available. However, we do recommend World Nomads. Now, they're a great travel insurance provider. I will send out a link now with details of our travel insurance that you can get for volunteers. And it's also pretty good because you can get a bit of an estimate of the cost of how much it's going to add to your budget and everything like that. So again, I'll send that link out, so just look out at the description below and we can have all those details there as well.
Also, when organizing your trip, obviously you'll be looking out for some cheap flights. Often the flights can be the most substantial expense that volunteers have in planning their program, and we're aware of that. So we've partnered with STA Travel, and they'll be happy to help organize flights for you, so you can get in touch with them regarding a quote on your flights after you register for the program, and just give you a few options to figure out what works best for you.
And again, we'll send out the link for that as well, if you do need some details on getting your flights ready and everything like that. And while we're on the subject of spending money, obviously budget's a big part of volunteering abroad and just travelling in general. So we get asked a lot, how much does it actually cost to volunteer abroad? Well, the good news is that firstly, your wallet's going to thank you, because firstly, you've already found the world's most affordable volunteer travel company, which is fantastic. But the thing is, with our programs, all the fees are slightly different. They're based on the country that you've chosen and also on how long you'd actually like to volunteer as well. Now, these fees are going to cover things like your accommodation, your meals, your airport pickup, your in-country 24/7 support, and along with this, you're also going to be required to pay just a standard IVHQ registration fee. Now, this is US $279, and this covers your ongoing support from the IVHQ staff here, right behind us in the office. It's also going to cover your info pack. You're going to get an interactive volunteer training available to you as well, and so much more. That's just going to help you really prepare for that trip abroad. The full details of where this money goes can be found under every program fees table on our website. So take a look at the website, have a look at the fees, and right below it you're going to find exactly where all your money is going at the same time.
The next big question that we get is a really common one, and it's, why should I pay to volunteer? And there's a few, I guess, really simple components to that, to answer that question. And the major one to keep in mind is that these communities that our volunteers are going to are obviously incurring some sort of costs with their accommodation, their meals, and that sort of thing. That being said, in the developing countries, a lot of times these communities can't actually afford to provide these accommodations to people just out of pocket, and that's part of the issue in the first place, is that they just don't have those resources. So the program fees obviously cover those types of costs. Additionally, they also help to keep the organizations that we partner with in country running with their operating costs, so that we can continue to send them volunteers and benefit the community.
Also, many IVHQ volunteers actually choose to fundraise their trips. There are some awesome online and offline methods of actually being able to raise a little bit of cash before you volunteer abroad. I'll show some of those ideas right now on the screen. And obviously, if you're looking for more fundraising ideas, we've actually got a full list of different fundraising ideas on our website. They range from your barbecues and quiz nights, and going down to actually online fundraising as well. So again, we'll send out a link so you can get some more details on how you can actually fund for your trip. Fundraising can be really good, and it can be used for both assistance with your travel-related costs, but it can also assist with funding and contributing donations to the project and the community in which you're going to be working once you arrive in country as well.
So on the topic of donations, which kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the fundraiser talk that we've just done, we get all kinds of questions around this on what's the best practice. I would say probably the easiest option for volunteers is to bring any donated funds with them on a preloaded credit card, and then purchase items that they identify and need for in their placement or in the community once they're in country. Obviously, that eliminates a big packing issue, but it also helps contribute, to stimulating the local economy, which is, a secondary benefit. But of course, we're also, always encouraging people, if you do have items you do want to bring with you and donate, you're more than welcome to do so. We just ask that you talk to the local team about it first, so that they can give you some advice or help enable you to distribute that so that it's done the right way. The other little pointer I have for you on that, if you do plan to bring items from home, is to check with your airline to see if they'd be willing to waive an extra baggage fee. A lot of airlines will do that, and a lot of our volunteers have success with that. You just need to get in touch with them before your flight.
And when it comes to actually booking the trip, we get asked a lot about how far in advance you should book. What's your advice on that?
I would say the best thing to do is to apply once you know you're interested. That doesn't commit you to the program. It just lets us know a little bit more about you and your plans, what you're interested in, what your goals are. And that way we can help make more recommendations and answer your questions as they pertain to you and the programs that you're interested in, because obviously working around the world, there's so many factors that can change from person to person. Now, in terms of registering, we don't really have a specific deadline for that for most programs. But generally speaking, 8 to 6 weeks beforehand at the latest. Some people choose to do it well in advance of that because they like more time to prepare. Other people get lucky and are still able to register within that period as well. And so I would say it's really more up to the tempo at which you work and your level of security with getting all of those preparations done in time.
Sounds good. And once you're all booked and you're ready to go, we get asked a lot as well, how can you actually connect with other volunteers that you're going to be working with once you arrive in country? Now, clearly, due to volunteers' privacy, we're unable to share details with everyone of other people that you're going to be joining. However, what we suggest you do is join one of our many IVHQ Facebook groups. So we've got lots of groups on Facebook. If you need details on that, obviously, you can just go to the search bar on Facebook and look out for those. Just type in IVHQ and there should be a whole lot of countries populate from that. Otherwise, you can ask your program manager. They can link you out to the Facebook group as well. Also, another good way of connecting with others is going to Instagram and following the hashtag IVHQ. you'll find that there's literally thousands of photos, thousands of people on there that are talking, they're meeting, and they're sharing their photos and their experiences on their trip as well. So it's a really good way of being able to connect with other volunteers before you do head off for your program. Now, once you are all booked, ready to go, it's also a really perfect time to start preparing for your trip as well.
Yeah, we constantly get questions about that, and so I'll just kind of run you through the process on that. So once you register for the program, your My IVHQ profile becomes updated. So that will include a checklist of all of the things that you need to do to prepare for the program, but you also get access to downloading the information booklet, and we have one for each of our programs that is specific to that destination. They're usually around 40 pages, but they're a pretty concise version to help you prepare for the program, just to take in, all of the additional information that will be helpful for you in getting ready for your trip and, kind of what to expect. We also offer pre-departure training in the form of 3 modules, which will just kind of help you with learning best practice of if you get yourself into a situation, what should you do in that situation, and also just make you feel a little bit more comfortable with the experience you're about to embark on. The other thing I recommend doing is utilizing that Facebook contact, just like Jordan was talking about, to chat with volunteers who have already done the program. Obviously, they have a lot of perspective and experience, and they may have little tips and tricks, or even packing recommendations, or tourism weekend recommendations, and that's really going to help just go that little extra mile.
Sounds good. Now, I'm just going to stop the presentation and just look. If you need any questions answered, I suggest using the little chat box just below the video just right now. And like I say, we've got a team standing by. If you do want to ask some questions, feel free to write them in that chat box there. Otherwise, you can flick us an email at the end of the presentation as well at info@volunteerhq.org. But we will, if you start populating some questions now, we'll try to get to those questions at the end of the presentation as well. But back into it, we also suggest just talking more about a little bit of research and things like that. We suggest just doing as much general research as possible on the actual country itself, the culture, the area that you're traveling to. It really just helps to minimize the culture shock when you do arrive and when you're trying to settle into your new environment, to make new friends and meet new people and everything. It just makes it just that much easier if you just know exactly what's going on and what to expect. And speaking of arriving in country, you're going to be picked up from the airport from our local team, which is always a fantastic thing. If you're traveling alone, traveling for the first time, you're traveling by yourself, you know that once you arrive in that foreign country, there's going to be a local team waiting with your name on a board, ready to pick you up from the airport. And so once they pick you up, they're going to be transport you to your accommodation once you do arrive as well. And our local team, a lot of people ask us how we actually choose our local team and how we choose our partners.
Yes, a lot of work actually goes into that, as we actually personally go and check out each of the partners that we work with before we decide to partner with them. And that's been the case for all of our partners that we've had since we've started IVHQ. So obviously there's a fair amount of communication before we begin a partnership. And then, once we've been chatting with them for a while and, we're pretty confident that they are able to perform, the certain standards that we have at IVHQ, then we go over there and we meet them. So we check out the community, we check out the accommodation, we check out, just their operations and how they run on a day-to-day basis, just to make sure that the level of service is there and the, the expectations that we have for the type of environment they provide to volunteers can be met. We also go to make sure that the placements that they'd be putting our volunteers into are actually benefiting the community, and that there's a certain, element of impact, because that's really important to us as well. So we always go check them out and have extensive conversation with them first. If we then decide that we're ready to partner with them and we want to send volunteers to them, we then go through a training process with them that takes several days, just going through over, all of our operations and procedures and, basically what's expected of them, so we're all on the same page. Then from that point, we also check in with them constantly over email, and we visit them on an annual basis as well, just to make sure that everything's running up to par.
And so, again, once you meet our fantastic local teams that we do have around the world at the airport, they're going to take you to your accommodation and you're going to kick off with your volunteer program. We get asked a lot what the volunteer daily schedule is going to look like. I'm going to show you a slide now, and so you can kind of have a rough idea just to see what you'll actually be doing. So like I say, that's just a real rough idea of the actual schedule.
It's an example, yes. So it really depends not only on where you're volunteering, but the actual placement that you have in your volunteer shift. So you may see some programs have longer hours than that. You may see some programs have slightly shorter hours than that. Or it may be that you work 4 days a week but longer hours, or 6 days a week and slightly shorter hours. So that was just a rough example.
And they, as they do differ, all the programs, they do have one thing in common, and that is that they all kick off with an orientation. Now, I see we've got a couple of questions there from Lydia about orientation, and it is fantastic. It's a great thing to be involved with. Obviously, it's a great chance to be able to meet other volunteers, but also you get to learn more about the projects. You get to meet with the local team. You get to learn more about the culture and just kind of get a feel and kind of just get acclimatized to where you are. So obviously those orientations are very important, hence why we have start dates on our volunteer programs as well.
So orientation, for the most part, the local team will cover everything you need to know, but no question is a stupid question at orientation. So if there's anything that doesn't feel quite right, or you're unsure of yourself about, or about what's going on, you're always encouraged to talk about that at orientation, because it's good to get that stuff on the table in the very beginning. It'll help you with your whole experience down the line. So I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is a question that we also get commonly, which is, I want to go volunteer in this location, but there's too many project options and I want to do them all. Can I spend time on more than one project? And in a lot of cases you can. So it is possible to split your time among more than one project and a specific destination, which is a really cool way to have a varied experience and maybe see two different areas within that country or two different aspects of the culture. Generally speaking, we usually recommend that volunteers spend at least 2 to 4 weeks on one project before they split to the next project. And that's just because we have had volunteers who have done a shorter period of time, say, a week or so, on the first project, and then they change into another. But the first week is really spent getting to know the placement and the people in it and how everything works. So essentially, if you split after that short period of time, sometimes it could be that you just get figure everything out and then you're ready to move on to the next project. So we do recommend that as a longer term option. If that's something you're interested in doing, if you haven't applied yet, you're welcome to say in the application, hey, I've applied for the construction project, but I'd also like to add at the final 2 weeks of my program to do childcare or something like that, and we can take care of that on our end. That's something that your program manager can also do for you. If you have already applied, all you need to do is email us.
Sounds good. Now, being an IVHQ as well, just so you know, it means a lot of hard work. It's great work, but it's real hard work. But it also means that that you can play really hard as well and really explore the country that you're in over your weekends and your spare time. The good thing about volunteering abroad with IVHQ is you're going to have this great flexibility each weekend to go travelling, exploring the country, or even not even going further afield and just exploring the community that you've chosen to live in. It's awesome just to see what you'll never know what you can find around the corner, for example, and it's just a good opportunity to really immerse yourself in that culture. On our website, if you are looking for details of things to do once you're in country, we do have travel and tour ideas compiled by the crew. So obviously we travel to all the programs each year, as Chelsea mentioned before, and we obviously go check out all the different tourist activities that are available as well. So you can find all our recommendations on our travel and tour pages on our website there as well. And also some of the projects will offer some flexibility during the day, not just the weekends itself. So what we do, we encourage you, is to explore the community, like I said, but also just take advantage of things like language lessons, which can be offered in many of our programs around the world as well. And obviously it's going to make working in your project much easier at the same time as well. If you do want to check out all the different, what volunteers are up to in their weekends and in their spare time, best place to look is, again, going back to Instagram. It's really popular with our volunteers. That hashtag IVHQ is key. Go on there, you'll find some great ideas of things to do, but you'll also find really good reviews of weekend travel options and things like that as well. And speaking of reviews, obviously that's a big part of volunteering abroad and doing your research.
Yes. So if you're looking for some reviews of our programs from real volunteers who have actually been on the program themselves, you can just head to the reviews tab on the top bar of our website and have a look there. You have the ability to kind of filter that through from program to program, so check that out. We also are reviewed extensively on a number of external platforms, so we suggest checking out websites like goabroad.com and gooverseas.com just to get some additional feedback from past volunteers there as well.
I've just sent out a link as well, so keep an eye out for that of where those review platforms are, so you can have a read about the different programs, the different countries that you're interested in travelling to. So, what is the future of IVHQ and volunteer travel? Again, we get asked this a lot, and the future of international volunteering, we see it isn't just poverty, and it isn't just developing countries alone. We think that the future of international volunteering is in communities all around the world, rich, poor, everything in between. And this is hence why we've recently launched some exciting new programs. You can now volunteer in Spain and in Portugal, and right here in New Zealand as well. So it's really exciting and all really fantastic programs.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us, folks, to the end of the webinar. Like I say, it's now time, if you do want to bring up any questions, if there's something we haven't covered and you're really keen for us to cover, this would be the perfect time to do that. There have been a couple of questions that have come through so far that we'll tackle, and also some people have sent us some questions via Twitter earlier on. The first one of those was the best location for travelling as a solo first-time volunteer. What would be your suggestions on that?
That's a tough one. I think that it probably also comes down to the person themselves, as all of our programs are really geared towards providing that level of support and service for someone who's traveling by themselves, but also you're going to be around a large group of other volunteers who are in exactly the same situation, who are traveling by themselves. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to make friends, even if you come on your own. But I would probably factor in some other personal, preferences of your own when you're making that decision, and that would be, what type of cause am I wanting to contribute to? What type of culture do I find appealing? What do I want to know more about, and that sort of thing, and think about it from that angle. And then if you can narrow it down, we can kind of help make some recommendations to you based on the fact that you're coming on your own.
And how about families? That's another one we get asked a lot, is best locations for like a family in a group unit, for example.
Yes. So that one I would say also kind of depends on the age of the children in the family. So basically, we have a few different styles of accommodation, and different programs have different styles depending on where you go. Generally speaking, for families, we recommend considering a program that has homestay style accommodation. It's just a little bit more intimate. It's a little bit more comfortable for the families than it would be per se in a dormitory style setting, which could sometimes be a little bit louder, or not really the right environment for families, particularly with small children. The other thing to think about is the age-appropriate work. So we generally recommend for families with younger children to stick with child care placements, just because the kids can interact with the other kids, and then it also isn't taking away from the parents' ability to be great volunteers and actually contribute something to the program. Also, some of our conservation projects are really good, and for older kids we also sometimes recommend the construction projects or outdoor work projects, things like that. So we actually have a page on our website dedicated to volunteering with a family. I'm not sure if we can get that up there
we can get that up there. So we'll post a link down there if you'd like to find more details on being able to volunteer with your family. I'll get that now. And while I'm finding that, the other question we get quite a bit, and we got via Twitter, was just about the medical projects, about how hands-on are the actual medical projects, and if you are looking for a more hands-on versus a observation type medical project, which is the best locations to go for?
So there's two parts to that question. The first part is that we do have some programs that are more hands-on than others, but first things first, it always really comes down to your level of qualification and your experience level, even in your home country. So I'm sure you can appreciate that just because you're doing patient care, there needs to be a certain level of experience in working with them and on them, and there's a number of factors that go into that. So it varies from program to program. We do have some programs that are eligible for pre-medical, pre-nursing students. We have some programs where you have to have completed at least 2 years of medical or nursing school, and then the other major component of that is the language ability. So obviously you're needing to chat with the patients, and so in particularly our Latin America programs, you need to be able to speak like an intermediate level of Spanish on our Lima and Argentina programs. But we do also have some where you don't necessarily need to have Spanish, but it does impact your level of independence on the program. But generally speaking, you'll be working alongside local healthcare providers. It really just depends on your qualification level.
Sounds good. Now, sticking with the medical theme, we got a question earlier from Emma as well, just asking about what happens if you're volunteering and you get hurt or you get a little bit sick. What kind of support can you receive from the local teams?
So first of all, on all of our programs, volunteers are provided with 24/7 support. So if you needed to have some medical attention, the first thing that you would need to do is get in touch with the local staff. They would make their way to you and make sure that you got the appropriate health care. So that would be either in a clinic or in a hospital, and they'd actually assist you to the clinic or hospital just to make sure that the language barrier isn't an issue and that you're actually getting adequate care. And they kind of also would act between you and the doctors, but also they would get in touch with your travel insurance and your family back home if it was necessary at that point. So that doesn't happen very often, so it's a really good thing, but you do have that support in the unlikely event that were to occur.
Fantastic. Also, Emma's asked there is quite a big price gap between IVHQ and other volunteer programs, and obviously we have some very affordable programs. Why for the such a big price gap?
Well, we can't really speak for the other organizations because we're not really behind any of that, but I can speak for IVHQ. We keep our prices affordable because we base our program fees on a transparent pricing model. And basically the point is we're looking at the cost of living in each of the countries that we work on, in addition to the cost of running an organization for our local partner organizations, which is why you see that variation in cost from destination to destination, because obviously it's different from place to place. So we base it on that first and foremost, but we also are able to offer our partners a steady stream of volunteers. So they get volunteers from us throughout the year, which helps them keep their costs consistent and therefore low. And it's a win-win for us. If we can make these programs more accessible to more people, then essentially we're making more volunteers accessible to these communities. So that's why we do it.
Fantastic. And there's another question there from Emma about the actual dorms themselves and some of the volunteer accommodation. I'm assuming she's asking about whether there's actual IVHQ staff on site at the volunteer accommodations around the world.
Yes. So for the most part, all of our dormitory style accommodations do have some sort of staff member on site at all times during the day. So that may be during the day some of the cleaning staff, but we also have security staff in a number of locations, or perhaps a coordinator or someone there that's just there for you should you need somebody.
Sounds fantastic. And guys, it looks as though that we've kind of gone over time. We're kind of trying to stick this to about 30 minutes for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, for asking all the questions that you've asked us so far as well. If you do have any further questions at all about volunteering abroad, volunteering with IVHQ, please feel free to email us. It's info@volunteerhq.org. I'll also send out an email shortly with this video if you do want to go back and have a look at some of the stuff that we may have spoken about. And if you do have any questions on the back of that email, feel free to reply. I'm more than happy to help out. And if I can't answer one of the questions, I'm sure Chelsea or one of the media team members out there can certainly help out as well. So guys, thank you again so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.